Hi everyone, my name is Marcus Escobar. Today I'm going to talk about one of the major changes in the Australian population and the way this change is affecting the pharmaceutical industry. One of the most important and crucial environmental factors affecting and restructuring the pharmaceutical industry in Australia is the aging population. The aging population and its relation to the increasing cost on healthcare, cost of new technology, new drugs, and government expenditure, it's one of the biggest challenges of the upcoming decades. GlaxoSmithKline is one of the major players in the pharmaceutical industry in Australia. It's rapidly responding to this environmental factor and changing its strategies and business processes to adapt. This company has always been driven by a continuous desire of improvement, and its mission is to help people do more, feel better, and live longer. The organization is constantly changing and adapting to the new necessities of the stakeholders. This company is aware of the different environmental factors that impact the well-being of the end customer and the relation that these factors have upon operations within the company. First, let's have a quick overview of the issue and see how it's impacting the health sector. The aging population in Australia has been increasing rapidly in the last few years, and it will continue growing in the next decades. The number of Australians aged 65 and over is expected to increase from 2 million to 6 million in the next 2 decades. That means going from around 13% of the population to around 25% of the population in the country. As we know, older people require more attention and care. Aging population tend to consume more healthcare and consume more resources in the healthcare system. For example, people aged 65 or more uses about 55% of the PBS medicines. This means that this sector of the population uses 51% of total government budget on subsidized medicines. If you think about it, this part of the population represents only 14% of the Australians. So the amount of money that the government spends in this small percentage of the population, it's crazy. Taking into consideration that this part of the community are no longer part of the workforce that ensures sustainability to the healthcare system. The amount of money that the Australian government spends in healthcare is projected to rise from around 4% of the GDP to around 7% in the next 30 years. This is projected to be the main source of pressure on the Australian government's budget over the next 50 years. The government already spends too much money in healthcare. Only in 2011, the government spent $90 billion in the healthcare system. If this number keeps growing this fast, provide quality service, products of value, and equity for all Australians will be a challenge out of proportion. Aging population, inflation, advances in medical technology, and healthcare services are impacting negatively the cost of providing accessible and reliable healthcare for everyone. Therefore, the government is moving really fast, taking measures that address this new challenge, and it's prioritizing sustainability in healthcare services, cost, and continuous growth of the pharmaceutical industry. The Australian government has reached a major agreement with the pharmaceutical industry related to the drug prices in the Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme, also known as PBS. But first, let's go over the Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme, also known as PBS, so we can understand what we're talking about. The Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme began in 1948 as a program with medicines free of charge for members of the community. Today, the PVS provides affordable access to necessary medicines for all Australians. Under the PVS, the government subsidized the cost of medicine for most medical conditions. Most of the listed medicines are dispensed by pharmacists and are used by patients at home. Now, back to the pharmaceutical new agreement with the government. This new agreement will deliver $1 billion in savings, which will be reinvested into the supply of medicines, including more breakthrough therapies listed in the PVS. The objective of this agreement is to enable patients to buy a wide range of prescription drugs at a subsidized price. This program will continue expanding with time to include more medicines with further cost reductions for patients. According to the terms of the agreement, new medicines entering the PVS list will have their prices reduced every 5, 10, and 15 years after being introduced. Now, the companies that enter the PVS with similar products to the one already listed will have to reduce their prices to 25% to compete with other companies inside the PVS. The agreement also incorporates significant process changes in the PVS that will help to accelerate the access to new drugs, such as the inclusion of generic medication and breakthrough therapies. This agreement acknowledged that the industry is currently delivering savings through recent reforms, and that the additional savings generated for taxpayers will be reinvested into new medicines to the PVS. Now, the aging population represents a great challenge, but also represents a great opportunity for the pharmaceutical industry to grow. It's clear that there is a degree of concern about the rising cost of the PVS to the Commonwealth budget. The challenge of meeting rising demand for medicines in publicity-funded health systems is not peculiar to Australia. It is a common challenge across every advanced economy in the world. GlaxoSmithKline believes that it is possible to address this issue while still achieving the broad goals and principles of the PVS. These measures focus on directing greater private funds and resources to meet envisaged rising demand. The Australian government provides tax reduction of 40 or 45% for a company like GlaxoSmithKline. This company sees the aging population as a great opportunity to direct a share of its business operations in Australia to fight the medication needs of the aging population. In one end, they will ensure a long-term relationship with the Australian government, adding new medications to the PVS under this new agreement, in which they will reduce the cost of medication every 5, 10, and 15 years. And in the other end, this long-term relationship ensures greater private fund designed to research and development for the medication necessities of the aging population and the continuous growth of the company. There is a great opportunity to direct the company's business strategy to give the Australian stakeholder high-quality products to treat cardiovascular disease, dementia, depression, obesity, diabetes, and arthritis. But also, there is a major opportunity to improve the quality of life of the aging population by understanding that as the population grows older, the number of medication that a person can take at the same time increases every day. In other words, older people take several medications at the same time, and side effects decrease the quality of life and increase the risk of hospitalizations, therefore increase on costs. The company is developing and pushing medications into the PVS designed precisely to interact with other drugs, minimizing the side effects, such as sedatives and tranquilizers, side effects on thinking and balance, side effects on blood pressure, or low blood sugar episodes. All these side effects affect the quality of life of the consumers and very often enables them to perform daily activities. Aging population seems like a great opportunity for the pharmaceutical industry to grow. But there are some ethical responsibilities in the relation to this challenge. Entering the PVS can be a privilege for many pharmaceutical companies in Australia. It is important to always ensure quality products regardless of the length of the contracts and the agreed prices for the products. Reducing prices in cost create tension and temptation among major players to reduce cost of manufacturing and production lines, sometimes to reduce the quality of products. The use of the government funding must be always used exactly for what was agreed. Many companies use funding partially for what it was destined. The funding received for introducing new breakthrough medication to the PVS must be used only with the purpose to benefit the aging population and improve an existing product if this is agreed to. Introduce medication regardless the demand of the product. Some products are so necessary that they can be sold at any price without the necessity of the PVS. Introducing quality products regardless the demand of the products to the PVS. It is important to always prioritize the well-being of the stakeholders and being socially responsible. Not because a product will be sold regardless the price of it in the market is acceptable to sell a product at a very high price. There are other recommendations on how to address the rising cost of healthcare due to increasing aging population in the country. One of them is the co-payment system. The co-payment system is the other part of the medication price in the PVS that is not subsidized by the government. This means when a product in the PVS is subsidized, the government pays a percentage of the real cost, and the customer pays a very small amount of that total price. This percentage that is expected to be covered by the patient can be redesigned to require a greater patient contribution to medicine costs. Such contribution could be based on various mechanisms and deliver greater equity, greater efficiency, and savings to the Commonwealth budget. Also, there are the private insurance mechanisms that could help reduce costs. Private health insurance has always played an important role in the healthcare system, particularly with respect to hospitalization services. Australian patients have never felt the necessity of a private insurance to cover medication, since the universal coverage of the PVS provides pretty much all the medicines needed. However, there is potential for the use of private health insurance mechanisms to address rising health costs, reducing the demand for hospital services, and using private insurance to fund these costs. Finally, while Australia's health system has traditionally relied on public or private insurance mechanisms, the creation of health savings accounts, Australia could provide a further pool of savings that might reduce the call on increased public expenditures, whether for an Australians or particular groups. Other nations like Singapore or the United States have established mechanisms to support increased healthcare costs in later years by designing tax advantage or compulsory saving mechanisms to expand these saving pools and reduce the call on public funds. To conclude, I would like to give you guys a quick quiz on the most interesting information of this webinar. First, aging population currently represent what number of the total population in Australia? A, 20%, B, 60%, C, 14%. The right answer is C. The aging population represents 14% of the total number of Australians in the country. Question number 2. In the next 2 decades, the aging population will reach what percentage of the Australian population? Number 1, 80%. Number 2, 25%. Number 3, 4%. The right answer is B. In the next 2 decades, the aging population of the country will be 25%. Question number 3. Older people consume what percentage of the government budget for medication in the PVS? Letter number A, 10%. Letter number B, 51%. Letter number C, 13%. The correct answer is B. Older people consume 51% of the government budget on subsidized medicine for the PVS. I really hope you guys enjoyed this webinar as much as I did. I hope this information was useful, and I see you guys in class.